The following story has been brought to you by StoriesToInspire.org.
A few years ago, in Bnei Brak, there was a fellow who went to a funeral, and he asked his grandson to accompany him. They went to Levi, he went with his grandfather, and on the way back from the Levi, he's walking with his grandson, and this fellow, Elio Dov Klar, turns to his grandson, and he says, "I guess that's the last of them." So his grandson looks at him and says, "Saba, what do you mean?" Says Elio Dov Klar, "Yeah, that's the last of them." He says, "What does that mean? It's your last friend?" So he turns to his grandson with love in his eyes. He says, "Let me tell you something. When I was a young bacher, maybe 13, 14 years old, I was learning in yeshiva in Vilna, in a Shnipashuk neighborhood of Vilna, in a yeshiva called Ramailis. Ramailis. The yeshiva was named after a fellow named Reb Miles, who donated the property for the yeshiva in the middle 1800s, and he came to know Reb Miles. That yeshiva was run by a different Rosh Yeshiva, but it was under the auspices of Reb Chaim Moshe Grudensky. One time, news came to Vilna that the Chofetz Chaim is coming to Vilna. He has to have a meeting with Reb Chaim Moshe. You can imagine, the yeshiva got all excited as the Rosh Yeshiva prepared the Bach, and they're going to go out for a big Kabbalah's Panim for the Chofetz Chaim. The Gadol Adar is coming. And the yeshiva was all very excited. This Tuesday they're going out, they're getting ready. And says Elio Dov Klar, "I received a letter on Monday. A letter from my father. He writes to me, because I heard the Chofetz Chaim is coming to Vilna. I heard the yeshiva is going out to greet him. You can't go. You can't go." And he writes in the letter, "I don't want you to go because you're a smaller person. You're the Bachrim are there a little older than you. You're only, whatever it was, 13, 14 years old, and I'm concerned you're going to get crushed. I don't want you to go. Stay and learn." Elio Dov Klar gets this letter, and he's devastated. The whole yeshiva is going to go out. Let me go. I'll stand further back. I'll stand on a porch, something. But at the end of the day, he said, "My father told me," he's telling all the story to his grandson, he said, "My father told me not to go. I didn't go. I stayed in yeshiva. I was the only one in yeshiva. Everybody went." A few hours later, everybody comes filing back into the yeshiva, and they're all pumped and excited. And they look at me and say, "Oh, you mamash lost out. First of all, you lost out. You didn't see the Chofetz Chaim. We all saw the Chofetz Chaim when he's coming to speak to Reb Chaim Moshe. And then, when you lost out even more, the Chofetz Chaim turned to us, the Bach of the yeshiva, and he gave us all a bracha for Arichas Yamim V'Shonim. We should all have Arichas Yamim V'Shonim. You weren't there. You didn't get the bracha." And says the Bacher Elio Dov, "I was devastated. I was devastated." So I went. I did something interesting. I'm not so sure why I did it, but I took out a piece of paper and I wrote down the names of all the Bachrim who went. I wrote it all down. Came the war. After the war, I survived the war. I ended up in America. After that, I came to Eretz Yisrael. And I kept track of all the Bachrim in the yeshiva. Amazingly, out of all the Bachrim in yeshiva, every single one survived the war. And every single one had a Arichas Yamim V'Shonim. Every single one lived long. The youngest, the first to die, died at the age of 83. And most of the other ones lived into their 90s. And every time I heard of Levi another one, I checked them off the list. And now, the last one just passed away. He had Arichas Yamim V'Shonim. Amazing what a bracha from a tzaddik does. He gave them a bracha. They should all have Arichas Yamim V'Shonim. And they all had Arichas Yamim V'Shonim, and they all lived so long. That's the bracha from a tzaddik. He looked at his grandson. With so much love in his eyes, he says, "They all got a bracha from the tzaddik, from the Chofetz Chaim, and look how it was true. But me, I stayed behind in yeshiva. I didn't get a bracha from the Chofetz Chaim. You know who I got a bracha from? I got a bracha from the pasuk from Hashem. Kabidas avicha v'esimecha, kasher tzivcha Hashem alekecha. As Hashem, your God, commanded you, l'man yarichun yamecha, so your days should be lengthened. I got a bracha directly from Hashem. And even though all my friends had Arichas Yamim V'Shonim, they're all now in the next world, and I am the only one still alive. Because I got the bracha directly from Hashem. And that's what this pasuk is telling us. Kabidas avicha v'esimecha, kasher tzivcha Hashem alekecha. honor your father and your mother for no reason other than Hashem tells you to. Whether your parents did for you or whether your parents didn't do for you, or you think they didn't do for you. Whether it makes sense what they're telling you or whether it doesn't make sense what they're telling you. You do it. You know why? Kasher tzivcha Hashem elekecha. And if you do that, l'man yarichon yomecha.
Enjoyed this story? Come again. Bring a friend. StoriesToInspire.org